we got through it and we found a different energy to harness. He found the courage through it, and then he found calm on the other side of it.
Welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast. Success isn't an accident. Successful people craft and apply a strategy to attain results, then continuously monitor, adjust, and act with consistency. We're excited to have Michael Bulloch, husband, father, author, and founder of the Man of Mastery brand, dedicated to building a community of high-achieving men who live in concert with their values and reject mediocrity to unlock the secrets of elite-level life performance. Michael is also the host of Man of Mastery podcast, sharing his message and providing listeners with insights and strategies to align happiness, fulfillment, health, wellness, productivity, and peace. When Michael isn't behind the mic, you can find him running Spartan Races, teaching his son to be mentally and physically resilient, and taking on crucible events to continue on the path of being a lifelong learner and peak performer. Welcome, Michael.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for having me. That was a very warm welcome. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, sir.
Yeah, very welcome. So we usually like to start off by just asking what you're grateful for today.
Well, I'm grateful for the chance to be here with you guys and your audience. It's also coincidental that, or maybe not, maybe there are no coincidences in the universe, that the day that we're recording this is also the day that I'm airing a Man of Mastery podcast that featured you guys, Casey and Andy, and the Fierce Planet Adventures story. And you know what? I'm grateful for, there's so much, right? I know there are challenging things going on in the world right now, but my wife, my son's just turned 13. We're all well. We are thriving in adversity. We are adapting, and we're just enjoying the ride.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I saw a photo. Was it the quarantine turning 13? That was pretty clever.
Exactly. Yep, you bet.
Looked like a good time.
Always a good time.
Michael, your goals for 21, you've got a lot going on. What are you most excited about for this year?
Wow. Gosh, that's a loaded question, right? We, for the first time as a family, I think we sat down in 2020 and actually, bought calendars, mapped out a year. We're going to Spain to play soccer. We're going to run 50 Spartan races. I'm going to do this crucible or that. We're going to do these family trips. And of course, that pretty much all came off the board. So we just rolled into 2021, kind of going a little more ad hoc. And some of that same kind of stuff is starting to happen again. I know we've talked about Spartan Races in the past, right? Some of that stuff's getting rescheduled. We're figuring out what the world kind of looks like. But the theme is the same, right? It's growth. And it's just a matter of going to figure out where we find that growth. Hopefully, one of the things we could talk about today is a pretty amazing crucible rite of passage growth event that I had a chance to do with my son and some other men and young men a couple of weeks ago. But that's sort of a pivot, more of finding new and different and maybe existing or ways we've just come across to continue to have fun, to adventure and find challenges and growth with whatever 2021 has ahead of us.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Well, why don't we start there?
Sure.
The Squire, I think it's called. Is that correct?
The Squire, yeah. So to give sort of full brand credit and what that's all about is there's a gentleman named Bedros Keuilian who is really living the American dream. Came here from growing up in another country. He is the owner of a worldwide franchisor of gymnasiums. So he's very much in the health and holistic fitness and industry. And he's got a book as well called Man Up. So he's really recognized the need to bring back some classic values. He created something called Modern Day Knight, the Modern Day Knight Project, which is about those values of masculinity, but also chivalry and how we all fit together in a modern society and maybe bring some classic things back to the modern world organically. That was largely a grown men organization, and he has a crucible event. Something organically grew out of that just recently, where he recognized a need for young men to partner with their father figures or uncles or whoever that may look like in their family dynamic and do tough things together, do things that are uncomfortable and grow. In our unbeatable mind vernacular, we talk about 5 domains or 5 mountains to explore and to adventure. this would be something very similar. Let's do things that are uncomfortable physically as a integrated training avenue to explore what's going on mentally and emotionally and intuitionally and spiritually. So the Squire, quite literally, is an event that they created. It's a 12 to 14 hour father son, or like I said, uncle, young man in the 12 to 15, 13 to 16 age range, to take these young men that are on the cusp of adulthood and talk to them about different ways to grow, create a rite of passage event, do some fun and hard things together, have them bond with some like-minded young men, and the fathers get a chance to bond as well. And for me and my son, it was an amazing experience to do some things. A lot of things welled up, a lot of things we got a chance to talk about. And it's also a time to just get away and do that talk. How often do we get to sit and talk about our values, look ahead at adulthood, think about what it means to start to take that seat at the table as an adult in the family, and what those responsibilities are and how you want to show up.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting. Do you have any like specific details? Like, how did the event go? I mean, what was the big takeaway for your son?
Well, I give you the specific example. It's got lots of layers to it,
Okay,
but it's something I think you guys will be able to appreciate, and maybe your audience. We have some similar communities. So for you guys you've been to an Unbeatable Mind experience event, so I think you probably got a chance to experience an ice bath.
Of course,
to do that, right? So the ice bath is such an amazing tool. I don't think anybody ever gets used to it. I don't know, maybe Wim Hof is used to it, but I don't think so, right? I think it's a matter of you start to learn things about yourself and your intentionality and your self-control. So it's an amazing tool. Lots of things can happen physically and emotionally. So that was part of the Squire event. And my son had a chance to attend an Unbeatable Mind experience event with us about 6 months ago. And the ice bath was something that he underestimated. It was very, very tough for him. And he didn't get through it the way that he had hoped to and wanted to. So it sort of stuck with him, right? It was a little form of baggage. Like we all carry baggage in our lives, right? We carry these things that we ultimately have to sort of face down if we want to move on and grow. So here we are at ice bath version 2, the redo. And as soon as we got in, nice big tub, so we got to get in together and face each other, all that stuff just came back to the surface, all the emotions and the tears. And we had to find a way to kind of shift fire. I know you like that term, Andy. Had to shift fire and harness a different emotion. And well, this was a manhood event. We had to get a little raw, a little dirty, a little savage, a little ugly, and take those emotions to a different place than we show up each day as father and son. It got a little rough around the edges, maybe not so much PG-13 rated, but we got through it, and we found a different energy to harness. He found the courage through it, and then he found calm on the other side of it, which was an amazing journey and an awesome time for us to go through it together. But I'll tell you another thing that popped out of it as well that is also tough, but it's a learning point, is about 10 seconds of that experience showed up on social media. And it wasn't something that got out without permission, right? We knew it was happening. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time. There was all kinds of reaction to that, as you do with anything that's out of context, right? This was literally a 3-minute ice bath with a 10-second excerpt of some of that, going from most of the time we get to be savage servants. This was maybe the savage warrior, right? Conquering something hard. So there's lots of lessons to come out of that. But one in particular is when we go through these sort of growth events, there are lots of transformative things that happen that are really probably ultimately a little bit private or best left private. Mm-hmm. And it's also, a good cautionary tale to be super cognizant of how we show up and represent ourselves, and what things we do want to show publicly when we have the chance, the opportunity to be a role model or to speak publicly, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So, Casey, did you have something?
I was just going to comment what an amazing experience to have with your son, and to be able to have those moments of growth and development together and just be able to share that into the future. I can't imagine what a strong relationship that builds for a father and a son. But that's amazing to see your son going through a lot of these crucible events as well. So when did you get him started on that, or has it been a lifelong thing for him?
No, yeah, thank you for saying that. I give him really all the credit for being willing to play along and just say, yeah, great, Dad, let's go do that. Oh, that's my birthday present. Fantastic.
Nice.
And his friends are kind of going like, what kind of birthday present is that? That's
Right.
what's going on here. And sometimes we joke around like, I don't know if we're quite right, if this is our idea of fun, but it's amazing. You put yourself in these situations and you start to meet some amazing people that are also willing to get a little uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens, right? In any realm. If it's intellectual, we got to go take a new class or learn something new or go deeper on a topic we're already into. And physically, I'm sure we can all relate. You got to stress the muscles or run longer or run intervals or something different, right? So doing the same thing doesn't allow us to grow. Being comfortable doesn't allow us to get stronger. So it's in those harder things, I think he's come to recognize pretty early in his life, that we do find growth. We find challenge. Sometimes that challenge is frustrating, but there's always something to learn. And that was something that I know we've talked about in a lot of the communities where we overlap. And it was in the Squire as well. Look, young men, there's no failure here today, right? It's all wins and lessons. So I credit my son for having the openness to do these things, my wife for being way ahead of me on the path of enlightenment. In her case, a lot of strengths and experience. One of those being meditation. She's a meditation teacher, so she got our son in tune to that very early on to try to find some calm that I think is benefiting him. We'll see how it goes in the teenage years. And then we took that directly into, as we both got involved with Spartan racing. That's really where I think we hit an inflection point, because as you guys know, you've done it. Those obstacles are a metaphor for life.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these, where life, throws things at us at its own pace. But these manufactured crucibles, we can go out and do hard things, obstacle after obstacle, and you're going to fail, or you're going to have places you want to get better. So every time there's a chance to, before a race, let's do some breathing. Let's do some visualization. Let's talk about what went through your head when you were running first in the race, but you failed the rope climb and had to do burpees and, lost, so all those kind of things. The fact that we were both enjoying doing things athletically together led to a sport that just facilitates those kind of conversations, which I think has just evolved. And I hope he keeps it up. I often say, I just turned 49. I say, like, I'm damn near 50 and I'm just learning to breathe. I love the opportunity I'll learn it anytime I can, but the chance to give the gifts of some of the kind of things that we're all learning and practicing and studying, to give it to young people earlier in life is amazing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Boy, you said a lot there, a lot to unpack. I think this is what we need for our children these days. Now, saying that, I don't have children, but you look at the world and it's become a complex place, more complex every day. In the unbeatable mind vernacular, or the military vernacular, we use the term VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. And we are dealing with it every single day. These types of events, even though they may just seem like things to do and little exercises or workouts or fun things to do, are actually teaching us, adults and children, to show up better, stronger, more resilient in the world. This is where, the growth happens, right? And even though it's in a fun environment, oftentimes beautiful environments, running in the Rocky Mountains or, next to the ocean or something similar, it tests us, right? And it shows us what you said. You had mentioned that these obstacles are metaphors in the Spartan race for what comes at us in life. And when we can process the little things and in the calm environment, it helps us frame it better, I think, for when life throws us the big curveballs, right? And the COVID lockdown, we both talked about how we had to shift fire from our plans last year of racing across the country, different Spartan races. And our plans of traveling across the country and doing all kinds of mountaineering and canyoneering adventures. And, guess what? That's life. So what did we do? We just changed up our perspective, and we were able to roll with it because, we knew what we were trying to do, right? We knew the direction. We may not have had it completely mapped out, but we knew where we were heading, and we knew what our values were, and we knew exactly what it was, we were trying to do. And that made it a little bit easier, right? Sure, it was a bummer. Maybe it bummed us out. We were a little bit put out for a little while, but we were able to reframe it pretty quickly and get back up and be resilient and move on to continue our journey in a slightly different way. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. One thing I do want to mention though is he's involved in a burpees challenge right now, right? Like every day. What's his goal?
Right. So you mentioned success tied to consistency, I think, or vice versa. So he let's think back, right before we knew the world that we know at the moment, on the New Year's Eve of 2020, so December 31st, 2019, he made a commitment to do 20 burpees a day minimum every day in 2020. And he puts those up with his mom's help. He puts those up on Instagram with a little tally, day one of 366 last year, and, day after day. And look, it's, people go, hey, he's crushing it. He is crushing it. But again, what do you see? What's the reality? There are days where it's a struggle. There are days where you don't want to do it. There are days where you're tired, or God, I got to get a shower, or mom says, do my hair before my burpees, or, whatever it is, right? There's always resistance. So to look at somebody and go, I wish I could be like that. Well, it's the same for all of us, right? There's resistance. So he finished it out in 2020, minimum of 20 burpees a day, including as a couple fun things. One, he got to do a workout live on Facebook with Spartan's founder, Joe DeSena, one day. So they did some burpees together as part of that. We also did, you guys are probably familiar with the Courage Foundation. So we did a whole bunch of burpees one day on that in support of their final push to 22 million burpees in support of vets with PTS and suicide. Within that, we were supporting one teammate who did 5,001 burpees himself on that day. We started at midnight Eastern. It was 9:00 for my time. So I got 3 hours of burpees done with him one night. And then the next day, a few more hours in which my son joined along. So he got those done, and we closed out 2020 with his last set of 20. We did a little recap podcast. It was fun. And then, hey, what are we going to do for 2021? Let's keep it rolling. He's got kids and adults all over the world playing along on Instagram. Let's keep ripping people off the couch. So this year, same deal, burpees every day. He switched up a little. So it's 21, and it's a Leonidas burpee. So same burpee, but at the bottom, we do 2 push-ups instead of 1 push-up. So that's nice. 42 push-ups a day, 21 burpees, if you want to think about it that way. Very Good stuff.
Yeah. You had mentioned that, some days it's hard for him. It's a struggle to get out and do these things. And I think that's a really interesting point that I wanted to touch on, because it's usually, if we're able to do that with consistency, to get up, get ourselves out of bed and go to the gym, do the workout, do whatever that hard thing is in our lives, even when it's hard mentally, we can do it because we have a strong connection to a why. Has he shared what his why is with you?
Yeah, I think for him, if we talk about how to create consistency and discipline, one way to do it would be to have a very structured day and just pin yourself in with time so that you create habits. That is something a lot of us lack, or we have so many externalities that it becomes very tough to do that. He's certainly not that structured. I will say, and look, he's 13. So Not to make excuses, but to give him credit at the same time. We started off COVID. He created his own daily schedule. I'm going to do online class from this time to this time. Then I'm going to do a workout, then this, then that, right? Lacking that, right, when it becomes more ad hoc, I think one of the most powerful ways to hold ourselves accountable is through a community And that ties back, I think, to the answer to your question of his why right now, which is he's really passionate about whenever he sees another kid, another Spartan racer, an adult, somebody who's super fit, Spartan pros, or it could be somebody who can do one burpee or can't do any burpees, but they're going to do some squat thrusts or whatever it might be. He gets fired up about seeing people jump on and do his challenge to whatever degree they can. So that's ultimately, I think, that that teamwork, the team spirit, the accountability, and the opportunity, the gratitude to get to help be a leader in a healthy way. That's really what drives him.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're right. He's got to give him credit. 13 years old and he's knocking it out of the park, right? And I think in part, that's due to you, right? Your leadership and your directions you're giving as a father. So congratulations on that. That's awesome.
I appreciate it. I give mom 99% of the credit.
Fair enough.
But I'll, just to touch on one thing you mentioned in there, you mentioned perspective. And I tie perspective back to growth. These inflection points or steps up, sort of those sea changes in development, whatever it might be. It could be as you learn academically in life. It could be the book about mastery in his Aikido study by George Leonard talks about those step changes. Whatever those growth steps might be, how you find those inflection points to me is really interesting. I think change in perspective is one of the real catalysts to that. So it could be a manufactured physical crucible where you just hit this inflection point of finally realizing how much more you're capable of, the 20X factor. But travel is something I know you guys are passionate about. And I think that's an amazing way to alter perspective and give you a view of new things, try new things, learn new things that you might really appreciate and love. Or you also, if nothing else, could learn to be grateful for the way that you have it at home when you get back, right? So that's another thing. I'll say I'm very happy that we've had a chance to do with our son so far is a good bit of travel, particularly international travel, where you get outside, again, comfort zone, get outside the comfort zone of perspective of language, location, food, style, stand-up toilet, whatever it might squat down toilet, whatever it might be. So to tie it back to, the travel theme that I know you guys are passionate about, that's an amazing way to grow and something else we love to do as a family.
Absolutely. A lot of growth there. To your point, I love that aspect of travel with perspective, especially trying to engage with other people in the world and just trying to view the world through someone else's eyes. Because we definitely see things from a much different perspective here in the States. But what a powerful tool for someone so young too, especially with your son. But trying to work together as a family traveling is another powerful growth, I think.
It is. I know you guys have had a family on your show. Is it the 5 Backpacks family that travels internationally?
The 3 boys. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just amazing when you see folks like you guys, you're willing to kind of cut the cord on classic modern comfort and take some risks. People who will just take the family and try something different, like traveling internationally, homeschooling as they go. You never know where it's going to lead, but it's sure to be exciting.
Absolutely. Certainly a good way to get out of the comfort zone, like you were saying.
So you had brought up travel, so I'm gonna go walk through the door here. You had done a backpack trip across the planet, right? Across the world. What was that like for you? Was it? Well, I'll just let you tell me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that almost sounds like I did a lot of walking. I'm not sure I did quite that much. I made it to 6 continents, and this was quite a long time ago. It was I was about 29 years old, so I was at a little bit of an inflection point between really maturing and figuring out career and all that kind of stuff. It was I think one thing that's important to say about it is it was something I had never considered doing. Sure, I thought, hey, let's go to Europe and that'd be cool. And you hear about people backpacking Europe for the summer, and I'd been to islands to scuba dive and things like that, right? But this was inspired by a roommate I was fortunate to have at the time who grew up in New Zealand. And he said, look, we have this idea that we realize at the time, I think they were a population of 4 million people with 1 million living abroad. Like we're a couple main islands of 3 million people that are really isolated from the rest of the world. And we're aware that there's danger in that of becoming sort of homogenous in worldview, if you will. And so they look at it, the way he described their cultural upbringing to me was there's school, but that's only part of your education. A lot of the kids are expected to do what they call their overseas expedition and travel for a bit independently of their parents as a form of education. So that really inspired me. Gosh, what could I do? So I'd racked up frequent flyer miles traveling for work, and it took a couple resets at work to finally get a leave of absence to take hold, but finally broke free for 6 or 7 months. Bought those plane tickets, cashed in some miles, and went. There was an around the world ticket. I think those still exist. So you get X number of stops as long as you keep going east or west around the globe. So I started in Atlanta, made my way west to South America, over to Oceania, Asia, Africa, Europe, and eventually back home. So that was certainly the longest time I've spent on the road, on the move, with a backpack with I don't know, 1 pair of shorts, 1 pants, 2 shirts, 1 pair of boots. But you find you don't need much. I went through a ton of books, lots of memories of amazing landscapes, but the people and the culture, those kind of experiences, I think, are the really rich thing in life. And certainly with travel, so many memories of cool people met and along the way.
Oh, sounds amazing. What was your favorite stop?
That's always a tough one, right? they mean different things in different ways. And there's so many super cool places in the world. One that I really gravitate to wanting to go back to was Nepal. So I spent about 5 weeks in Nepal, including 2 weeks straight of trekking around in the mountains with the backpack, staying at huts and overnights. So amazing, huge mountains, beautiful place. If you're, a super world-class mountaineer, that's definitely the place to go. But I was just, walking around with the backpack on and enjoying the sights. Vietnam is amazingly a beautiful place that I went to. South Africa was completely different to me and completely beautiful. Europe, it's interesting because Europe was kind of the place that I always said, I'll go later. Mm-hmm. Right. It's sort of close. And I sort of see at least Western Europe being fairly close to our culture. But that everywhere I went surprised me. And that one surprised me as well. In particular, France, Paris is a place that I couldn't believe a couple times I've been there, how much I love the energy of that city. And then I've been to Greece 3 or 4 times now, including the chance to run the Spartan race in Sparta, Greece. So I could go, to all these places and tell you something favorite about each one. But if I had to pick one, Nepal really stands out. Just an amazing place.
Beautiful.
Oh, wow. Bucket list journey there.
Yeah,
for sure. Something I wanted to ask you though, as I understand it, you ended up with a back injury. Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't know if you ever get rid of those.
Yeah,
I did. I don't know if you guys have been through that. I don't wish it on anyone. That actually was not that long. If I look back, it's probably one of those things where I had a buildup of injuries over time and didn't recognize it, respect it, know my body. When you're young, you just throw yourself at stuff. And then even it was after I came back from that trip in which I was in amazing shape when I came back. In fact, I think I lost something like 50 pounds during those travels. And wow. Certainly that indicates I was at least a little overweight before I left. But a lot of it is just walking, getting out of the chair that we sit in all the time here in the States, being active, probably eating smaller portions, maybe eating better quality, and just being active outdoors. And then, I fell back into literally eating at Waffle House every night for a period of time. And, I'm sure the whole core and everything got weak again. And I had another just event where I tweaked my back really bad to the point where I ruptured a couple discs, fought it for about 6 months. Again, didn't take very good care of it, and ultimately had surgery on that. So since then, there's been, just a lot of, there's a lot of emotion and mental type of stuff that go with an injury like that. Fear of, oh, did I hurt it again, or could I hurt it again? But I've also had the opportunity to adapt, right? We adapt and we overcome. So how do you go about things a little bit differently now? Where does mobility and flexibility play in? How do I try to strengthen in ways that are helpful but not harmful, based on maybe where I have some limitations? So I know you've had some pretty severe back injuries yourself. Do you find similar adaptations, or how is that for you?
Yeah, it's something I've been dealing with for a couple or almost 3 decades now, and it ebbs and flows, right? There's peaks and valleys with it, and oddly enough, shortly after we decided to set out on this adventure that we're on right now, after not really having any major issues for a while, that's kind of when it flared up, right? Go figure. Um, and there's definitely, outside of the physical issues, there's also a mental and emotional issue that I'm finding interesting to deal with. And it's like, okay, so what am I feeling, and why am I feeling it, and is that something that's real, or is it a story I'm telling myself? Like, okay, so I'm injured, am I ever going to be able to do mountaineering or canyoneering again? There's that question mark. And, you have to constantly tell yourself, look, this is a temporary situation. You're going through treatment. Um, this is all, in service of getting back into the mountains, into the canyons on the Spartan Race Trail. And it's going to be okay, but it's going to be a process. And there's going to be, pitfalls or potholes, through along the journey. And you just have to pull yourself out. And hopefully, along the way, you realize and you recognize what those potholes are, and you're able to avoid them a little bit more. And those could be things like getting up and being active and stretching on the physical side, taking time every day to breathe and meditate and visualize what the future is going to look like. And, just bringing it all together and just keep on moving forward. So yeah, I'm not going to say it's easy. There are certainly days that they're more challenging than others, but it's life, right? And it's one of those things where 30 years ago, when it happened, I wasn't in a mental state or emotional state where I dealt with it really well, and it kind of wrecked me for a while. And as life went on, I just kind of learned to adapt and roll with it, but I didn't really deal with any of the underlying emotional issues until much later, until right? Until Unbeatable Mind came along, and it helped me change my perspective and gave me tools on how to actually change my perspective emotionally and mentally. But not only that, it also brought me to yoga, which I had always rejected as being, oh, I'm not flexible enough. That's something that the ladies do at the gym, or, they go to the yoga studio and then get their lattes. And when I found Kokoro yoga, the warrior yoga, we call it, that has functional fitness built in, building that flexibility and durability has actually gone a really long way for my recovery. And it's changed my headspace too, in a very positive way. So that's kind of the long-winded way of saying that, yeah, start doing yoga.
Start doing yoga. Do you mind if I just jump in on a quick comment on that?
Absolutely.
I 100% agree. So when I had the most severe, when I ruptured those lumbar discs, I had a friend at work say, "Let me take you to my chiropractor. I think they might be able to fix you."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, come on, right? Can they really fix something that's broken? Maybe it's a maintenance thing, but no. And so I kept pushing myself, and to the point of like, okay, now we probably have to do something drastic, acute, like surgery. So to quote or paraphrase a guest I had on my show recently, I'm much more in tune now and comfortable with saying I don't know what I don't know, or there's a whole lot that I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that. So that was one place, maybe that narrow view of not exploring better body maintenance care, just awareness in general, like you're saying, tuning into your body or tuning into how you're thinking about your body. I post surgery, I was still in pain and mobility management mode. Couldn't put my socks on the day I went into surgery, could barely put my socks on the day after surgery. And I did find that chiropractic was a huge help. And it was a maintenance thing for me. When I finally started doing yoga, I haven't gone back to the chiropractor since. The yoga works for me. It works wonders. And I don't know if this is how it all ties together, right? I don't understand yoga beyond mobility and lattes, but I know that ultimately we have a nervous system, right? And we are energy, whether that's moving through our muscles or moving through our brain. So just a quick story I had at one of the Unbeatable Mind events. If you guys have been to one of the experiences where I'm going to forget the guy's name now, Will Potter comes in and does the breath experience, where you got about 45 minutes of some very physical breathing, where you just hyper oxygenate your body, and lots of experiential things happen there. Well, at the end of that coming into at that time, I had tweaked my back, working on a refrigerator at home, threw it out again. And so I show up to this 3-day experience thing, not even really wanting to move. Did Catherine's yoga session. That helped a little bit. Going into that Will Potter session, laying on the floor, doing the breathing, my lower back was killing me the whole time. I mean, it was just jammed up. Mm-hmm. And at the end of his guided breathing and his visualization, he led a visualization. I think you guys were at this one, where he had everybody then put their hands on their stomach or low belly. And we did this visualization of kind of all sending love and energy out into the world and the universe, encompassing everything and everybody. And when we visualized that energetic sort of giving and release, I had an instant relief of the pain in my back. It went away. Wow. Instantly went away. Going, what's going on here? I stood up. It was gone. And I went and talked to Will afterwards, and I said, this happened, or I felt this. Is that possible? Does that make any sense? And if you know that guy, he just kind of goes, might be.
Yeah. Will's an amazing guy. He's a character. For anybody who ever is interested in doing breath empowerment, boy, can't encourage you enough to check Will out. He's in Southern California, I think Encinitas. He's also a Tai Chi instructor, Qigong instructor as well. Great guy. I've done that breath empowerment twice now, and I've had 2 completely different experiences with it. And they're both very interesting. I'm not going to share them right now, at least because I don't want to drive or scare anybody away, but I would definitely do it again and again and again. But I would tell you, it's very interesting. It's a whole different animal.
It starts to sound real woo woo, but it is, there's powerful stuff that goes on there somehow.
Yeah. I encourage folks to check Will out, his breath empowerment. Before we move on to the next topic, Casey, did you have anything you wanted to ask? I've been kind of monopolizing the call.
Actually, just a comment. I was thinking about the pain releasing when you're doing the breathing, and I've actually read a lot of how we will trap emotions and feelings or energy, if you will, in certain places, and you can really breathe into those and release things like that. I know with the injury, of course, but definitely kind of find that interesting that through that breath work, you were able to release some of that pain. Just how powerful that is. But yeah, that was an amazing experience.
It's the first time I've experienced that. The concept of breathing into a particular, flow or muscle or spot or pain was something relatively new to me that has been really fun to play around with. It's the real deal. And to share one other story recently that to me, it's this energetic space. Speaking of Qigong teachers, I had a chance to go to the sheepdog event, and there was a Kung Fu master there who's he can kind of use the energy for good or evil, right? For healing or for hurting. And I saw him, help people who developed injuries or strains or whatever in the course of of some of the combatives training, but without touching them, right? He just sort of, and you ask him what he's doing. He goes like, I don't know. I'm just like feeling stuff, right? I saw him, it's small. He's a relatively small man, and he's 72, 73 years old, amazingly quick, but he overpowered 3 huge guys with literally his pinky in a tug of war. And then I saw him defend a striking blow by, if you guys know Jim Bro, Jim's a very experienced athlete and martial artist. And the way that this guy defended, he said, watch this. And he did it somehow energetically to the point where Jim was literally thrown backwards onto the floor, visibly in extreme pain.
Wow. Just for our listeners who aren't familiar with Jim Bro, he is the CEO of Unbeatable Mind, and he's also author of a few books. One of the titles is Easy Makes This Week. I think you have that on your reading list on your website.
Good book. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, good stuff. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. He also has a book on mastery, which happens to feature, I think, that same Kung Fu instructor. So if people are interested in that, you can find out a little bit more about both Jim and Sifu Feng.
Wonderful. So big goals for 2021. We touched on it at the very beginning, but I wanted to come back to business goals. You've got some interesting stuff going on, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that because, I think what you're doing here is necessary. It's needed in our society. And I think many men would benefit greatly from tapping into what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, and thank you for the opportunity to talk a bit about it. So I'll share a little bit more about where the Man of Mastery community and brand and I are heading this year in particular. I'll tie it back in the spirit to start with referencing back to the Squire, right? This father-son event. So I've done one of those, and something I'd like to facilitate a lot more of. And I'll come back to that in just a second. But coming into this event, the Squire, I talk to these guys because, like a lot of businesses, you got to sign a contract when you show up. You got to sign literally a non-disclosure, confidentiality, non-compete. And I go, whoa, wait a minute, guys. What's the spirit of this, right? Because I'm a coach. I coach men. I coach young men, and I do some father-son things together. Is there any concern here? And we talked about it. No, come on up and do the event. So the first few hours I was there, one of the coaches pulled me aside and goes, hey, I understand you're endeavoring to do something similar to this in the future. And I was wondering, well, what angle is this coming from? Mm-hmm. And he explained, our view is there is so much of this needed. There is so much unmet need and potential that we can't fill it all. You can't fill it all, right? There is so much need and demand. So his question was from one of a perspective of abundance, meaning how can we serve you? How can we help bring more of this to the world? How can we, you guys are on a mission to inspire passion and purpose and self-mastery in many, many people. So I just love that spirit of how can we all work together with a sense of abundance to serve the world better. And the way I'm doing that, and I've been doing that, as you said, I created this brand around the concept of the journey of self-mastery in life. The idea that we're all on a path. Nobody's reached a final destination because there isn't one, right? Every peak we get to, there's another one. There's another challenge ahead. There's always another growth opportunity. Maybe we can't see it, which is one of the great places for coaches, right? Or other forms of accountability to help spot your blind spots. But this journey, self-mastery, nobody's there. And so it's beautiful to interact with other people and learn from each other. Where are you ahead of me on the path? What can I learn from you? What have I learned that I could share with you? And of all the men that I've had the honor and opportunity to work with so far, what I see is a couple recurring themes, and this is what's guiding 2021. One is there is a lot of, and I think it's our society, ticking off the box and saying, I've reached success. Mm-hmm. Maybe success looks like career or finance or whatever, whatever the optics of that are. And then you get there and you look around and you go, Well, I'm not happy, or I'm not fulfilled, or what was the meaning in all that? What
Mhm.
impact did I make on the world, right? It's the fulfillment and happiness question. So the way I describe that is to take nothing away from that success, but it's unbalanced. So the way I frame it is helping take successful men to being holistically exceptional, right? Developing, if we want to call it the 5 mountains, balanced success. And ultimately, the question that brings us to, I like the word legacy to describe it, not just in the sense of what do I want people to remember me for when I'm gone, or what does my tombstone say, or, what do I want to have done or left on the world? It really is that impact on the world. What am I doing that fits my purpose? What is my purpose? How do I find the space to get the awareness to uncover that purpose and then live it, not have lived it? How do I live it now, right? How do I do those things now that make me happy? How do I connect with people in meaningful ways now? So I'm a living legacy. And people may call it other things, but that's the word I love for it. And it's something I just see coming up over and over again with my coaching clients. So in some ways, I call myself a legacy coach. And I think of what I'm ultimately doing and the things I'm rolling out this year in sort of maybe it's a triangle or a tripod. We got Spartan triangles behind me, right? So it's working with men in that regard. But really, as I said about breathing as an example, we can't start too soon. So working with my son and some of his peers through soccer, they play competitive club soccer. So what a great way to deliver coaching within the context of a physical integrated training movement, right? So working with young men, working with grown men, and then the third leg of this triangle is bringing those father-son experiential events together. So I know it's a tough world right now in terms of creating live events, but I'm actively working in those two coaching angles. And then my vision for 2021 is live father-son, rite of passage, training, experience type of events.
Oh, that sounds exciting. One of the themes that keeps coming up during our conversation today is breathing, or learning how to breathe, or teaching people how to breathe. Can you tell me a little bit about why that's so important?
Gosh, we all need to breathe, pretty sure.
I mean, we all breathe anyway, right? So what do you
Right.
what do you mean by learning to breathe?
Sure. And it does seem simple, but the more you get into it, it is such a rich practice in so many ways. So I believe we all come into this world knowing how to physically breathe correctly, meaning for the most part, nostril breathing, calming our system, activating the parasympathetic nerve system, which means breathing deep into our lungs where we can get more oxygen. I heard a stat recently that breathing into your lower lungs allows you to absorb 6 times the oxygen as when you're breathing into your upper chest, right? So from an efficiency or an athletic performance perspective, that's amazing. That could be practice. So just creating those first calming breath practices, as you guys know, something like a box breathing pattern, a slow inhale, a hold, a slow exhale, a hold, or a very relaxing breath, like a mother's breath, where you exhale for twice the duration of your inhale, can be great to calm down or fall asleep or after a strenuous exercise. All those are super useful tools to create some calm in your life, to start the day on solid, calm footing, whether it's the stress of work, switching gears from work to home. Traffic can be challenging. And then that, to me, that breath practice of creating some space in our mind, some awareness, opens up all these other avenues, whether it's exploring your passions or your purpose. Or one of the places it's led me now, and so I'll pause with this, is not only what are some of these breathing techniques, but what are ways to get better at them? I've realized I'm not great at nostril breathing during athletic exercise. How do I work on that? Exploring CO2 tolerance, exploring breath for heat, like through a Wim Hof, going back to the ice bath. What I'm working on right now, I'm in a 5-week course hosted online by a Krav Maga coach of mine, who's also a mindfulness coach and a breath coach. And he's taking a group of us through 5 weeks of, we're literally I'm going to say this, and most people have never thought about it. I hadn't, but it becomes so sort of obvious, is go back to our back injuries or anything else as we age, we get weaker and we get stiffer if we don't train it, right? Mm-hmm. So we're literally, I'm pointing at my abdomen here for anybody who can't see me or you're just listening, is we're working on strengthening the diaphragm, strengthening and bringing flexibility back to the intercostal muscles of the rib cage. And so we do a lot of things, like you mentioned, breathing into a sore spot. We'll lean and breathe into one side, lean and breathe into the other, and do different mobility while we breathe exercises to mechanically get better at breathing. So then we're able to be even more effective in these breathing practices that have different purposes.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'll have to look into that as well. So you can, after any powerful breath practice, I can usually feel how sore I am.
Right.
So I was just thinking how much people could be developing that even further beyond just a simple like Buck's breathing round or two, you know. So,
there's so much to explore there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's very interesting.
And so one of the underlying themes of today's conversation is breathing, right? It's breath work. It's whether it's Will Potter's breath empowerment practice or exercise, or box breathing, mother's breath, tactical breathing. You know, these are all really powerful techniques and tools that you can, you know, learn to utilize and, you know, to expand your life. Okay, I think, you know, we're kind of running up against a hard stop here. I wanted to touch on a couple things real quickly from your website. 30-day training, make bold moves.
Yeah. So this really goes back to your question. Thank you for bringing that up as well, of what's going on in 2021. So end of month is my target here. I'm running up against it. We'll see. I am offering for men. And again, it's amazing when I look at my statistics and I hear from people, I've probably got like a 65, 35 male, female audience. And the age range has really surprised me as well. But for men in particular who are looking for the accountability and a group of, you know, trying to find a peer group to work together and grow and do interesting, hard things, I am kicking off a month-long free delivery, probably through email and video combination, 30 days of training. There'll be about 20, 25 lessons in there of tools, tactics, techniques to go from some long range visionary things, kind of the strategic look on things, and pulling that all the way back in as we ratchet into what do we want 2021 to look like for each of us, guys that are ready to make some bold new moves, that want that kind of help to figure out, how do I get some visibility on where I'm going? How do I start to chunk that down to get there? And then how do I hold myself to it in discipline, in schedule, in rituals and routines, and accountability with peer group, coach, partnership, those kind of things.
That just sounds amazing. I think that's going to be pretty successful. That's great. And then folks can also, men can also download, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Mastery Legacy Planner.
Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time myself trying to sort out what a good morning ritual looks like, and then a good evening ritual to set up the morning ritual. Journaling along with that, and really how can I structure a productive day and a day that keeps moving the ball forward, right, towards purpose. And so I keep bringing myself back to, how do I do all that in one place? There are lots of planner formats out there, and I'll tell you one. I'm reaching for one of my journals here. One of the things, another gift that my very wise wife gave me, that I'm incorporating into that. She gave me a standalone journal when our son was born. And what I do in that journal is I write down things speaking to my son as time goes on. And so he's seen me write in it. He knows it exists, but he's never had a chance to read it yet. So I've been writing to him since he was an infant, at intervals as we do things like the Squire or his birthday or things like that. So that I called this thing the Legacy Planner, because that's something that as a journal format I've created. So each day I can do a little bit of journaling, not only for myself, but leaving memories for for my son, leaving those behind. So I've got an electronic version of that now that I'm offering. People can take it and use it for themselves. Maybe we'll do a print version later, but that's where that came from.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. I have to download that and look at it for sure.
You bet.
All right. So where can folks get in touch with you at? I mean, I know that you're across all the social media platforms, manofmastery.com.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Sure. The website's a great, launch point for everything for people who want to go to manofmastery.com, as you said, and the links to the things you just mentioned are there. On social media, it's at the Man of Mastery. So Instagram, I'm probably most active, but feel free to reach out to me there with a direct message. You can hit the website and find my email address or numerous ways to contact me there. I'm super accessible. Love to hear from people. I always love feedback or questions or just the chance to get to connect with somebody, right? I have this amazing opportunity to connect with you guys here just because one person knew somebody else and we connected, and it's amazing. I can also follow up if you're interested and you're interested to provide some of those other things I mentioned. So for example, the breathing training that I'm doing right now with that particular coach and where that derives from, I could share his information and the school he studies within. And also, even if it's, just for something fun, I'm reaching for this. I've got a pink tape measure here. I don't know why I got pink, but there is a website I can send you guys that's called Breathing IQ. So you can score yourself by taking a tape measure like that. It tells you where to put it around your lower rib, and you do a full inhale and a full exhale, and it'll help grade you on how effectively you're breathing in a 360 horizontal fashion versus a fight or flight vertical fashion. So that might be something to share with your audience as well.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. As always, it's a pleasure. We love chatting with you, and we'll have to touch base again with you in the future, maybe towards the end of 2021 to see, checking on the Spartan races and the burpees.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the chance to talk to you guys again, but of course the chance to hopefully reach and touch some of your audience. I love your, not only your theme, but just the name and the brand, Fierce Planet Adventures. In my mind, I keep parsing it down. I love adventures, this planet, this worldview, this universal view, and then just the fierce nature of what you guys do, what you do. I'm so inspired by it, and thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome.
Thanks
Live fiercely, my friend.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.